this is it. This is the end. It feels so weird to realize I've reached the end of Epic. It's like, it feels like both yesterday and also a million years ago that I had just started, not knowing what I was getting into and thinking, oh, I'll sit and listen to a whole saga, and then spent so long in just The Horse and the Infant. I went, I guess I'm not doing a whole saga. Final song. Would You Fall in Love with Me Again? This has to be Odysseus and Penelope, which is the greatest reunion in the Odyssey. The reunion between Penelope and Odysseus, like the proper reunion, is so good. Because I had mentioned back in previous songs in this saga that she does technically meet with Odysseus, but while he's in disguise, and he doesn't reveal himself at all during that time. And even though she's smart. Penelope is our smart girl, favored by Athena, of course she is. And she's like, if you're not my husband, you're a god in disguise. I know what to do. We set the challenge, right? And in the middle of the challenge, while it's going, and she's just sitting there watching, going, nobody's gonna fucking string this. At one point, Penelope does leave. Smartly, she's right to assume nobody's gonna be able to string it, except for Odysseus. And she's like, I'm gonna just dip. And she's basically in her rooms during the entirety of the slaughter of the suitors. So what happens ultimately in the Odyssey is that Euryclea, this nursemaid, if you will, who we've mentioned several times, she's, knows what's happening, because of course she knows everything that's happening in that fucking house. Runs to Penelope's like, Penelope, oh my god. Odysseus is home. And Penelope's actually sleeping in this moment, so she's kind of like, what? No, he's not. Like, okay, sure. I think you're losing it. Like, okay. And she's like, no, it's true. And Penelope is being led into the hall, the Great Hall, where Odysseus is waiting for her. And, I mean, she knows it's him right off the bat. And even on the way, she's thinking, do I hold out? Do I, preserve some modesty? Do I run right at him and give him a hug? And she's thinking all this over. Because, again, remember, it's been 20 years. It's like, what am I actually going to get? Because she has met Odysseus, but in disguise. And he physically looks very different when he's in disguise, because that disguise was given by Athena, right? So she's like, how much like the person I knew is he? Which is, kind of a valid question to think about. And I'd wager that's probably what the title of this song is hinting at. She goes to meet him and she sees him, but she doesn't say anything. She's just kind of looking at him. She's looking him over. And it said that, at times she sees her husband. Like, she sees the guy she knew. But at other times she's like, you are also covered in blood, guts, and gore, is still kind of in the remnants of what little filthy rags you put back on. Like, you look like shit, basically. So she's kind of like, okay, unsure how I'm supposed to be reacting in this moment. And actually, Telemachus is so surprised that, his mother is not having this immediate, joyful reunion with his father. He's kind of like, Mom, what's wrong? Like, are you okay? Like, what are you doing? Why aren't you going to hug him or anything? Which, I will say that Telemachus sometimes comes across a little with the way he talks to Penelope. But in this case, I do think here's the kid who, has reunited with his father he never really knew, who was with him in this moment of Odysseia and killed all the suitors. They finally set things right, and he's like, right, this should just be a big happy reunion. And she's just sort of standing there kind of looking at him, not reacting. And I think Telemachus is like, I don't understand what you're processing right now, because I'm 20, and why isn't this, the big happy reunion that I'm just expecting to get? Mom, you've been waiting for Dad so long, kind of thing. I give Telemachus a little grace on this moment. And Odysseus even says, he's like, no, Telemachus, you don't talk to your mother like that. No. He goes, all of you leave. Let my wife test me as she will, basically. Because he can tell, her brain is moving. There's a reason they get along together. And again, there's a reason Penelope's the smartest fucking character in the Odyssey. And she is sitting there going, all right, And Odysseus also acknowledges, I look like shit. I'm in, basically rags. I'm covered in all sorts of viscera and dirt. Maybe I should get cleaned up first, and then we can have a proper talk, because obviously there's a lot to catch up on. So Odysseus kind of cleans himself up, and even after that, Penelope is still not saying anything. We know that she's coming up with a test. And it's such a beautiful moment. She comes up with the test, and at first Odysseus is like, hello, hi, I look like myself again, I'm all washed up, it's obviously me, what's going on? And Penelope shoots back here. She goes, strange man. I'm not so proud, so scornful, nor am I overwhelmed by your quick change. You look, how well I know, the way he looked setting sail from Ithaca years ago aboard the long-oared ship. Come, Euryclea, move the sturdy bedstead out of our bridal chamber, that room the master built with his own hands. Take it out now, sturdy bed that it is, and spread it deep with fleece, blankets, and lustrous throws to keep him warm. And that is the moment Penelope proves she's the smartest character, because what she's saying is the ultimate test. Because Odysseus had said, no, let your mom test me as she will. So she thought of the perfect test. And it's like in the time it took Odysseus to get changed, like he's thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna tell her to test me, but of course she's gonna come running into my arms. And Penelope's like, yeah, that's my husband, all right. Nope, that ego's gonna sit but right back down. She puts out this test. And it is a test, because that bed cannot be moved. Because the infamous, if you will, or the famous bed of Odysseus and Penelope was built into an olive tree. And so it literally cannot be moved. As Odysseus says, woman, your words, they cut me to the core. Who could move my bed? Impossible task, even for some skilled craftsman, unless a god came down in person, quick to lend a hand, lifted it out with ease and moved it elsewhere. Not a man on earth, not even at peak's strength, would find it easy to price it up and shift it. No. A great sign, a hallmark, lies in its construction. I know. I built it myself. No one else. There was an branching olive tree inside our court, grown to its full prime, the bole like a column, thick set. Around it, I built my bedroom, finished off the walls with good tight stonework, roofed it over soundly, and added doors, hung well and snugly wedged. Then I lopped the leafy crown of the olive, clean cutting the stump bare from roots up, planing it round with bronze smoothing adze. I had the skill. I shaped it plumb to the line to make my bedpost, bored the holes it needed with an auger, worked from there. I built my bed, start to finish. I gave it ivory inlays, gold and silver fittings, wove the straps across it, oxide gleaming red. There is our secret sign, I tell you, our life story. Does the bed, my lady, still stand planted firm? I don't know. Or has someone chopped away that olive trunk and hauled our bedstead off? And that's the moment Penelope tricks Odysseus. And he falls for it. And of course, at that point, you then get the big romantic reunion. Like, she falls to her knees. She's so overwhelmed. She's like, oh my God, it is you. I mean, and she knew it was him. And the part that I love about that moment is she is equal parts kind of testing him. Like, could this be a trick of the gods? She doesn't think so. But hey, you know, never an off chance. It's equal parts kind of playing, like poking, because I know that's the only thing you'll know. But also, it's a way of saying, I know it's you. And so I'm presenting you with only a riddle, basically, that you would know how to answer. But Odysseus is so, like, it's been so long. Remember that we've had the through line of what happened to Agamemnon coming through the entirety of the Odyssey, and even though he does not doubt Penelope, you can't help that doubt niggling in the back of your mind, or who knows what had happened while he was gone, because again, he was gone for 20 years, he doesn't fucking know what happened. That the thought that that bed got moved, or that, like, the bed got changed, he has that moment where he's just like, huh? And it's just like, dude, wake the fuck up, my man. And he just sort of has a breakdown. She's like, oh my God, honey, like, I'm just, Jesus, like, did you not clock that I was, like, okay, sure, you said test you, but oh my God. Penelope's the smartest character in the Odyssey. But, anywho, would you fall in love with me again? I'm ready. I'm ready.
Oh my God, we're at the end.
Penelope.
So we're doing this privately.
Is it you?
Marcy, that's fine.
Have my prayers been answered? Is it really you standing there? Or am I dreaming once more?
Yeah, I like how we have that moment because we've taken out the Euryclea character, which is very understandable when you're trying to minimize the amount of cast members you have. We also don't have Penelope going down to the Great Hall. I mean, also, again, we did the Slaughter of the Suitor slightly differently, so it wasn't all predominantly contained to that hall. It was throughout the palace. And allowing this to be an entirely private moment, I think that's a nice choice.
You look different
do find it hilarious that she's not mentioning, and you're covered in blood, guts, viscera, and filth.
Thanks, honey.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I should not crack jokes. I can't help it. I'm bracing for potential tears, and so I crack jokes.
Is it really you, my love?
I am not the man you fell in love with. I am not the man you once adored. I am not your kind and gentle husband. And I am not the love you knew before.
Yeah, this is kind of what I figured it would be, this bit, where, you know, in the Odyssey, Odysseus and Penelope first see each other, and Telemachus is like, Mom, why aren't you just running to him? And Odysseus is like, it's totally understandable that she might not fully recognize who I am. Now, of course, again, he's covered in blood, guts, gore, and viscera, and he's wearing, like, maybe a couple rags that he threw on after, you know, going buck wild while buck naked.
Again, with the nudity, my god.
It's just so Homer can talk about thighs, I swear. This entire section, the I'm not the man you knew before, basically. I mean, again, Penelope kind of talks about that in the Odyssey, where it's like she sees him, but she sort of doesn't. She recognizes that things have changed. And it's nice, actually, again, in the Odyssey, that we really get Penelope's thoughts in a lot of that moment, as opposed to just Odysseus's. So again, this is outside of the scope of the part of the Odyssey that's being told strictly by Odysseus. So we're getting a much more third-person kind of omniscient view of the whole thing. I feel like I always have to bring this up, this idea that he was gentle and kind. I'm like, yes, he's said to have been a good husband to Penelope. They never seem to have had any problems maritally. My one issue is that the way the narrative seems to frame that idea is that it's like, okay, again, let's remember, great king, great warrior. He did plenty of violent things, and she would know that. Now, trying to note that I am not the same man who went to war, because again, the Trojan War, this truly generation-defining, age-ending conflict, making it more specifically that, like, I'm not the same man who went to war, I think would re-emphasize that we started in Troy for a reason, right? Because the way I feel, because a lot of times I note, and I notice that, you know, when I say like, oh, I wish we were referencing Troy and bringing this up, people say, oh, well, you know, people don't know the Iliad or whatever. I'm like, okay, but we started in Troy for a reason. It's best to reinforce through the narrative with tiny little moments or words and references to be like, there's a reason we started in Troy. We started there for a reason. There's a reason Jorge chose to start there. He needed the events of what happened there to push us through to this finale. And again, I think that Jorge, thus far in Ithaca, and I doubt this song will disappoint me in that regard, is sticking his landing. I think he got a little lost in the middle in places, but he is sticking his landing. The idea that Odysseus has not changed. He thinks he has, though. And that's an interesting thing to explore, because the Greeks, especially the ancient Greeks, would not have been likely to explore that idea. Again, because violence of any kind really was a far more common occurrence. But also, they would not have had the language in a way to speak on something like, say, PTSD, which is what we're leaning into the idea of Odysseus as having, kind of like the war-torn vet PTSD, right? So yeah, the Greeks would not have really done too much there because they wouldn't have known how to discuss it, right? We have the language in a way for that now. So I acknowledge that I think choosing that to try and examine, I think is an interesting choice by Jorge. And I think there's value to that. I do think he gets a little lost in the south, in the middle. But he's sticking his landing here, which tells me, okay, yeah, he had a vision. He knew where he wanted to end. He gets a little distracted in places in the middle. I do like that we're having Odysseus finally verbalized the thing that he's really been afraid of this whole time. This idea that they're not going to know me when I'm home. Am I the same person who went off? No, I'm not. Like, this is terrible. And this is where I also say I think Vengeance Saga should be reworked. And Vengeance Saga should have been the thing that led us into that.
Would you fall in love with me again if you knew all I've done? The things I cannot change. Would you love me all the same? I know that you've been waiting for love. as I traded friends like objects I could use. Hurt more lives than I can count on my hands, but all of that was to bring me back to you.
Yeah, the idea that, like, he does all this to get back there. That's one of the big things about the Odyssey. If you want to look at Odysseus as a character through the Odyssey specifically, it's the case of you have to be entirely egocentric. He has to essentially be incredibly selfish, you'd argue, to get back home. And it's like he only realizes that when everything has been taken from him. Because again, the story of the Odyssey is the suffering of Odysseus. Man has to suffer through the entirety of the story. He very rarely, if ever, gets a break. Like never. And even then, it is a short respite. Very short. Not long enough. So he's talking about, like, you know, left a trail of blood on every island. I said that's very normal. Again, we spoke of how this idea of raiding culture was seemingly pretty normal in the Bronze Age. And absolutely, he's on a Nostos. The idea of the Nostos, this homecoming, is you're likely to stop on islands. These islands you may not know. And you might face people who are hostile. And so you fight your way through that. Very common. This is the story of a Nostos. This is sort of what he's describing here. But the trading friends like objects is the first time I think he's really acknowledged, I kind of treated my guys like shit. And again, we kind of did a little better by his crew, and especially characters like Eurylochus in Epic, compared to the Odyssey, where he just slags on them the whole time, and they are a pain in the ass. And even the narrator at the start of the Odyssey, before we ever even meet Odysseus, tells you his crew was unruly, and they were a problem. So, like, his crew kind of sucks even more in the Odyssey. But Jorge really, I think, gave them a reasonably fair shake in a lot of Epic. And the fact that he acknowledged, like, there was a point where I stopped treating them as people, and they became obstacles in my way. Yeah, that's exactly what happens in the Odyssey. And Odysseus kind of has to come to terms with that. Now, he doesn't really get to in the Odyssey in the same way that he is here in Epic. Again, one, you know, talking about that kind of thought process, whether or not they were having it back then in, you know, in this case, supposed to be Bronze Age Greece, they certainly didn't have the language to try and describe that, number one. Number two, Odysseus truly almost never gets a break. He gets a break for like a hot second, and then he's immediately got to deal with another thing. Like, when we meet him, he is ready to off himself on Calypso's island. He gets told he gets to go home. He has to spend a couple days building a raft. He's got to so once he builds the raft, he's got to set off. Okay, it's supposed to take you 20 days of pretty difficult sailing to get to this island you've never heard of, the Isle of the Phaeacians. Oh, and by the way, Poseidon shows up in the middle and absolutely nearly fucking kills you. And you survive because a water nymph happened to, like, get curious and pop up like Disney's Little Mermaid going, oh, hey, look, a human! And gives you a shawl that manages to keep you from drowning. And even then, you stumble onto the Isle of Scadia, this Isle of the Phaeacians. You pass out from pure exhaustion after, you know, flinging the shawl back, as you're supposed to. You pass out there, you wake up because the princess of the island has shown up with her handmaidens, and they're, you know, washing their laundry and doing their stuff, and now you're like, I'm buck-ass naked, and now I gotta cover myself and, like, greet this stranger and be like, how do I get them to help me? So then he's gotta start playing politicking, and then from there, he's back at Ithaca, and then once he's back at Ithaca, he's gotta freaking do the slaughter of the suitors and everything else. Like, this is the first time we're getting him have a moment to fucking breathe. Really breathe. Now, in the Odyssey, he still has more to do. Again, you have book 24, which we're definitely not doing here, which I think is totally fine to end it here. So wow, we're finally getting a chance for Odysseus to properly self-reflect. And that is something I said, where this musical moves at a really good clip, but it does move at a clip, because it keeps quite a bit. And while I do wish there were a couple more moments scattered here and there where we allowed Odysseus to kind of self-reflect, or try to, even if only, like, he gets, like, only a few words out, make it more clear that that's what he's doing, or at least maybe in Act 1, give me a moment. It's nice that we're finally having the acknowledgement here. Again, Jorge is sticking his narrative landing. It does show me how kind of, again, muddled we got in the middle, but he is sticking his landing. So well done.
So tell me, would you fall in love with me again if you knew all I've done, the things I can't undo? I am not the man you knew. I know that you've been waiting.
I love we have him belting this part where before it was really gentle.
If that's true, could you do me just a moment of labor
Gonna do the bed.
that would bring me some peace. See that wedding bed, could you carry it over? Lift it high on your shoulders and take it far away from here.
Oh, wow.
Could you?
That's interesting. So we've just changed a small detail of this, but one that's very important. Again, in the Odyssey, she says, I need you to come and bring it into this chamber, like, because obviously you're my husband. Like, if you're saying you're my husband, we need to bring it back in, as if it had been taken out. And that throws him into a tizzy. And in this case, because we have Odysseus saying, I'm not the man you knew, I'm not the same person, are you even gonna still love me when you know what I've done? She's saying, okay, well, if you're really not the same person, if you're really not my husband, as you're saying, take our wedding bed out. Which is going to throw him so hard. Which again, we're keeping a lot of the same emotions, but changing one little detail in order to serve this particular emotional narrative beat that Jorge wants. That's a great little change to make. It's a little change, but it means a lot, because we're also still trying to have that moment of she's equal parts, deliberately giving Odysseus a kind of like swoosh across the face. I don't even know what word I was going for there. She's tricking him on purpose. Equal parts. You're my husband, and I know I can I'm the only person who can trick you, and I know I can. But there's equal parts of, do you really believe what you're saying? Number one. Like, okay, if you believe what you're saying, get that out of here, because you're not the same person. But she knows that he knows there's only the two of them who really know about that wedding bed, who know everything about it, what it means, how important it is, the fact that it is rooted into the ground. And that's going to throw him. Like, what do you mean with the marriage bed? Like, that was our thing. How could you ask me to do that? At which point, I would bet she comes back and says, yeah, because you're my fucking husband. So, shut up. In the most loving way possible. I know I sound very intense saying that. It's like, no. This is all done out of love. And that is what is so important. It's this, and that is the same as in the Odyssey. That whole thing with the trick, it is all done with love. And again, also the smartest character in the Odyssey. She's the only one who tricks Odysseus, who totally gets one over on him. And I think it's incredible that it's his wife, because of course it is, but two, it is done with absolute love. There is no malice in pulling the trick on him. It's all done with love.
To say this, I had built that wedding bed with my blood and sweat, carved it into the olive tree where we first met.
Well, I think that's a pretty thing to say. No, that's not true, because he would have first met her in Sparta, right? She was the daughter of a king of Sparta. That is where he went to go and seek her hand. So that's nice and all, but no. Don't forget, Jorge, she's from Sparta, not from Ithaca. That was not where they first met. He had obviously met her there. We know because there's the whole story of her father, like, trying to convince them to stay in Sparta and not go back to Ithaca. He was like, I'll give you something here, son-in-law, to, like, keep her here. And he's just like, no, like, I'm from Ithaca. I love Ithaca, and that's my kingdom, and that's where I'm going back to. And she famously went with him. So, Jorge, small detail.
A symbol of our love everlasting.
It kind of is, so yeah, that's true.
Realize what you have asked me. The only way to move it is
She's
to
got
cut it from its roots.
Only my husband knew that, so I guess that makes him you.
Oh, her voice. Yeah, hello.
Penelope.
The most loving, snap out of it you could ever get. I love that. Love that. I love the emotion we're hearing in these singers too.
I will fall in love with you over and over again. I don't care how, where, or when, no matter how long it's been, you're mine. Don't tell me you're not the same person. You're always my husband, and I've been waiting.
Penelope.
For you.
there's more.
How long has it been?
20 years. I love you.
That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I will say though, and these are very like ending of musical personal taste things. One, all of the waitings. When she cuts off that last one, I would want to hold that silence a little longer before doing the for you. Hold that space there just a little bit longer. Then bring in the Just a Man reprise. And I will say I don't love the coda after that. And like you've done the big orchestral swell. End with that. Just let it go. The whole, how long has it been? 20 years, I love you. I actually kind of don't love that bit. I don't want it. I get how some people might really like it. To me, it's like, oh, no. You've got the big emotion from the musical swell. That's the way you close out the show. Just close it out that way. The extra coda is like, oh, okay, I guess you're here. To what, reinforce how long it's been? Okay. Jorge, you had me till that bit. And that's a very, I will note, that's not even really a critique. That's very much like how I would want the musical to end. So that's not me saying he did anything wrong, did anything bad. That's how he wants to end it. I personally would like it ended differently. That's very much personal taste. So it's not one of those things that like I think potentially affects the narrative or affects characters or anything like that. That's just, I would rather we just end with the Just a Man swell because that's so powerful the way that's done. Overall, a beautiful song, a beautiful finale, doing the bit with the wedding bed. I like the way, again, you just, and similarly to how he recontextualized the conversation that happened with the whole Polyphemus encounter, we've slightly recontextualized, but very importantly recontextualize how we go about this particular encounter. And these are moments where really Jorge's adaptive chops shine, where it's like, I get what this scene is. I need it to serve my narrative a little bit differently. So I'm going to slightly change, okay, where it's taking place, slightly what we're talking about leading into it, but we keep all the beats. And it's like, oh, well done. Well done. Because again, it's all right there in the text for you. All there in the Odyssey, and he uses it here to his advantage. Well done. And that's the end of Ithaca Saga. Ithaca Saga is so much stronger than Wisdom and Vengeance, and I have been made to understand that, again, it kind of got almost last-minute hardcore rewrites. Like a whole bunch of the songs got rewrites. It shows, which again, when you allow yourself time to go and take more passes at something, this shows in the level of polish. I know recently at our book club for book 6 of the Odyssey in the afterwards chats, we ended up discussing like how we would work on Wisdom and Vengeance to bring them up. Like if we had the chance. And we put forth honestly some great suggestions. I might end up putting that up as its own video. I'm only hesitant of doing it because I don't want it to come across that we're saying, you know, Jorge has written something bad, how dare he, and we're the people to fix it. This is what would happen where if we were given the chance and the opportunity to say, Jorge, we'd like to pitch to you some ideas how we personally as a community, because it was me and the chat, how would we try and make Wisdom and Vengeance as sagas stronger so that it benefits the message he's trying, it strengthens the characterizations and the themes that he's got, and we really lead here into Ithaca, because again, everything is driving to this saga. This is the finale, and I do think Jorge sticks his landing. Wisdom and Vengeance for me are just really two sagas where it shows he kind of got lost and distracted in the middle. Potentially, I think he also doesn't know how to kill his darlings. 600 strike, I'm looking at you. But this saga was phenomenal. This is how you stick a landing. And again, for something that is a concept album, this is still incredibly strong. And even with all of my critiques that I've had and all of my moments of being like, I'm not sure how I feel about some of these changes, I recognize how fucking talented this man is as a composer, also as basically like a casting director, which I gotta say, that's an underrated talent and should be fucking appreciated. The ability to cast voices the way that he did throughout the entirety of this musical should be applauded. His music should be applauded. in comparison, the lyrical and storytelling element, mainly lyrics as it pertains to story, his storytelling element is a little clunky in places. And that's where I go, this is a concept album. I see some of the clunkiness, though there is a lot of polish, I will say. Again, this is still an insane undertaking he did. And I am wildly impressed with what I was presented with. Because again, you tell me you're doing a musical of the Odyssey and I would probably start laughing and say, good luck. Like, just good luck. It's not easy. Anybody says they want to do any adaptation of the Odyssey, I go, good luck. It's not easy. It's not. It's a difficult story. And so, honestly, bravo, Jorge, bravo. This is extremely impressive. Is it perfect? In my opinion, no. Again, always just my opinion. Do I think there's stuff that could be enhanced, could be punched up, could be made better? Yes. Do I think there are at least two sagas who need some pretty significant rewrites? Yeah. I think Wisdom has good structure, but needs to be rewritten a bit. And again, as I have said many a times throughout the series, but I don't say it every video, so we're at the end, I'll say it here again. This is my opinion. It's just my opinion. You don't have to agree. I don't expect everyone to agree. I know everyone doesn't agree. And that's totally fine. I love that. Honestly, I think my favorite thing about going into this musical, not just like getting to listen to it and having this experience, is everybody who came and for some reason wanted to watch me ramble and go on about all of this, but also would engage in really great discussion in the comments. Again, some of the most interesting stuff I would read were people who didn't agree with me and put forth their own interpretations and how they view the musical, what they thought was being said, how they viewed it. I love that. Like, I absolutely adore that. And again, a lot of the way that I go about these videos, like I'm again, a big nerd. I like kind of more academic discussion. I like everyone just getting to even debate. So again, even if everybody's not agreeing with each other down there, even let alone agreeing with me, I like reading it. Getting all of these contrasting or, coalescing viewpoints does a lot for when I continue to think. Because again, let's remember, every video you saw was a gut reaction. I'm doing any and all commentary analysis on the fly in a gut reaction. Are my thoughts and opinions open to either changing or solidifying or slightly tweaking as time goes on? Absolutely. As I continue to think and listen and, read comments, listen to other reactors, which it has been hysterical of I listen to other reactors because most of them react to animatics. And I haven't done those yet, and I don't want to be spoiled for them, so I just have them on in the background to listen to, which is a strange experience. But I guess that does mean, now that we're done, the animatics are coming. I have a playlist that was made for me of over 100 animatics to experience, which I am honestly so fucking excited for. This is where I will get to say, I'm not talking about textual analysis and adaptation. I am gonna vibe. I am here to experience like the pure visual art of it all and how people go, this thing inspired me, here's how I'm visualizing it, which I adore. Again, one of my favorite things of studying adaptation while getting a film degree and learning from a working screenwriter is how then you get things like directors and everybody else to take their text and try to envision it, right? That's so much fun. And now I can do that without having to try and split my brain in two places of like, I need to think about what's being said, but I need to focus on the visuals. Now I can just do visuals. Grabby hands. Guys, I'm excited for the animatics. People have been popping up these animatics, so I'm ready. And supposedly we've got some really good ones lined up. And I am so excited for the animatics. So the animatics are coming next. But oh my god, guys, it's the end. I've listened to the entirety of Epic the Musical. Oh my god. We did it!